As part of our trip, we got to tour the radio station. The Caribbean Radio Lighthouse started broadcasting on September 7th in 1975. Today, it broadcasts both on AM and FM. The AM station broadcasts at 10,000 watts, which has a listening area of around 300 square miles. Even though the station operates 24 hours a day, it only has 3 national staff members, plus the missionaries Nathan and Renee. These staff members, Erskine, Marianne, and Shaniza, work diligently to edit and schedule all of the day's broadcasts. Everything is done in-house at the station, including maintenance on all the equipment.
Actually repairing it all the way on the workbench is more narrow it down to what circuit board needs replaced on the wall.
The radio station also has 2 production and broadcasting booths, but let's let Nathan explain everything that happens in these rooms.
And done ahead of time, whether it be an interview on the telephone or whether it be something face-to-face or the scripture memory minute children's programming, that's all recorded here. Or even the buffers and IDs that you hear come on. Erskine saying, make sure that you don't get too busy for God. You're listening to the Radio Lighthouse. We're keeping you focused on Jesus Christ. 11:60 a.m., that kind of thing. All of that's recorded in here. This would be our redundancy backup in case that studio were to fail. We could come in here. And I guess you've already seen the audio software. But we are able to, with equipment over here, record interviews over the phone. When COVID first started and there was a lockdown, we even had Pastor Murphy do his call-in program from home on his cell phone. And it introduced some logistical challenges because it's amazing how much you rely on body language. Like I may be doing a station ID and I can see him kind of go like this and I know he wants to say something else. So it wasn't quite as smooth, but we started to work out the bugs. And then it got to the point where he was able to come in as essential staff.
So do you do that in here? Or in
that takes place in there.
Okay.
During the program, Marianne sits here, she screens the calls,
That's right.
and then she presses this button and it sends the call on hold over there, and then I'm able to fade it up and bring it in. And any WhatsApp questions that come in, they come in on this computer, and then she will put them on OneNote and send it over to us over there. And it's convenient also with the window in between. We put the window there for this specific program and purpose so that I'm looking this way, she's looking that way. So if there was an occasional time, before we used OneNote for the chat, we used like ICQ or old chat programs, but occasionally something wouldn't work right. And so either she would have to write on a note of paper and walk in and hand it to me, or she'd like be waving at me and I would know something wasn't quite right, and then it would get my attention. Sometimes I'll get so enthralled with the conversation I'm having with Pastor Murphy, and I'll forget to look at the screen. So, in these rooms, I past you here. I notice in these rooms there's no parallel surfaces. Even the ceiling and the floor aren't parallel, and that's because parallel surfaces create the potential of an echo. And then this carpet on the wall is not necessarily to stop noise from going through, it's to deaden the room so it doesn't sound like you're in a tin can effect. And so anything that goes over our FM frequency is going through this computer and this console. It automatically switches to the BBN Spanish feed with the computer and this automatic computerized switcher. At 9 p.m. it switches to Spanish, and then every 30 minutes they send a tone that you can't hear, and it tells the computer that it's that time for a 60-second break, and so the computer fades down BBN Spanish, fades up this computer, and someone's voice comes in and says in Spanish station ID and the time. Then we fill with about 20 seconds of music, instrumental music, fade that down, and then they get a tone, the computer gets a tone, and it fades back to BBN Spanish. Then at 9 a.m., which would have just happened in the last hour and a half, then we get a tone, a unique tone, and we fade down BBN Spanish, make an announcement in Spanish and in English that says we're now leaving the Spanish programming and joining the English programming, also heard on 11:60 a.m., and then it fades out to that. And so then this computer is synchronized with that, so that that transition, when that computer fades up to join the English programming, it's instrumental music that is playing. That way it's not like you're joining in the middle of a sermon or
Right.
something. And so during the That's Truth call-in program, I'm here, Pastor Murphy's sitting down here, Mary Ann's in the other room, and then Renee is watching on Facebook to make sure sometimes there'll be an audio glitch, or if there's any questions that come in on Facebook, she sends them to Mary Ann, then Mary Ann sends them over.
And Renee does that from downstairs?
She does it usually from sitting at her desk up front. Sometimes she's working at one of these computers that the staff work at, updating stuff on their computers.
You meant
Fair
up
enough.
front, stay
Yeah.
downstairs. We are downstairs.
And then, so anything that you hear over AM is coming out of this computer or through this microphone or through this backup music MP3 player. So when we do a Windows update, speaking of a Windows update, it says it has important updates, so I'll have to do that later today or tomorrow morning. And sometimes that can take an hour for that computer to reboot.
Huh.
And so we will just play instrumental music or vocal music from the MP3 player and jump in every 15 minutes or so. Sorry for your regular programming not being available. We'll bring that to you as soon as possible. Until then, enjoy Is He Worthy or whatever the song may be.
So would you normally do that like between 3 and 4 in the afternoon when you
Normally
have a half
I would
hour?
do it between 7 and 8 a.m.
Oh, okay.
because I'm here, no one else is pushing, like Erskine's not pushing anything over to this computer. I don't want him to be syncing stuff over in this computer all of a sudden do a reboot and it scramble work that
Right.
he's done. We've had that happen before and it's not very pleasant. So normally I would try and do it at the beginning of the day before anyone else is here. So I'll probably do it tomorrow morning. Let's see, we've got audio processors and then a delay unit. So during the call-in program, we have a 60-second delay. So if someone were to call in, we've never had anyone call in and start cursing, but if they did, we could hit this dump button, and every time you hit the button, it drops 6 seconds of audio at a time.
Okay.
Occasionally, we have used it where occasionally one of us will have a serious coughing fit that was unexpected, and you can drop the audio that way. But it's amazing, the technology.
How do you make up the time?
Well, it is all built in there. And so beforehand, about 15 minutes before the program starts, I hit the build button, and let me get this right. It slows down the program momentarily. Not enough to where you can realize it, unless maybe you had a really keen ear and you knew that particular rendition of that song and you realized, hey, that's a little slower, but you'd have to be pretty astute to that. It slows it down until it creates a 60-second buffer. And then let's say that the person is, I'm just going to use a basic sentence. The person is saying, Jesus is not God. Jah is God. Jah would be the Rastafarian word name for God. Jesus is not God. Jah is God. So in the room here, we would hear Jesus is not God. And within the next 6 seconds, or if I caught it within 12 seconds, I'd just hit it twice. You hit it. And what the listener hears on the output of that would be Jesus is not, well, that wasn't a good sentence. They wouldn't even hear that particular sentence. It would just morph together. So you may have, worst case scenario, you may have a sentence that jumps. Like it may go, it's not quite, doesn't make complete sense. the tree outside is, or Pastor Murphy's answering the question, says, well, you don't have a good understanding. On the next note, but it morphs it all together and then builds that buffer of 60 seconds back up. I didn't do that justice. But it's amazing, the technology in the old days.
So it might be an unusual transition, but it's not a noticeably awkward transition.
The lower end technology will have, when you press that button, it'll just fill it with a station ID. So it would be like Pastor Murphy talking, or the listener saying, Jesus is not, you're listening to the Caribbean Radio Lighthouse. It would be something like that. But this actually...
Or you can program it for a beep or something like that.
You could do a beep if you wanted, yeah.
That's it for this video. In our next video, we'll climb to the top of Antigua's tallest mountain. So I'm on the tallest part of the island.